one of the crown jewels of Poland's state-owned defence industry, the Łucznik arms factory in Radom, manufacturer of world-renowned Grot rifle and Viz 100 pistols, has expanded its production capacity to meet military needs. A new production hall was launched there a year ago, but today there aren't enough orders to utilise it. Trade unions at Łucznik warn that this could result in layoffs affecting about a quarter of the 600-person workforce. We asked the Vice Mayor of Radom about the city's arms factory. This is a non-partisan issue. We must act and seek solutions that will support the development of the Polish defence industry, not only for Łucznik, but from the perspective of Radom and the employment of its residents, as well as the region's development, because this industry provides a strong growth impetus for the entire region, not just the city. Why is this the case? It comes down to the current government's procurement decisions and the lack of new contracts. The Minister of National Defence recently spoke about the situation at the Radom factory. We have a large number of contracts that we are managing, both from the previous years and those we have recently concluded. They amount to tens and hundreds of billions, so the Ministry of National Defence's budget isn't elastic, but we are seeking funding from the European Union. The fact that Donald Tusk's government, that the leadership of the Ministry of National Defence, is unable to continue with orders placed by the Law and Justice Party government to supply these weapons to the Polish army is a testament to the incompetence of the current leadership. This is a scandal, because during the Law and Justice Party's government, which lasted until 2023, the factory produced not only for the Polish army. Grot carbines from Radom were also sent to Ukraine. We were preparing this factory for expansion, recognizing that it was obvious it should operate in 3 shifts and at high capacity. The current government is just throwing up their hands in helplessness. The Grot rifle has proven itself in the war in Ukraine. It is truly a very good weapon. The fact that the Ministry of National Defence is unable to place an order with the arms factory in Radom is a testament to their incompetence. Interestingly, not everyone in the ruling coalition has heard about the problems at one of the country's largest arms factories. I know nothing about this. I'm terribly sorry. I've only just entered the parliament. Honestly, that's not my area of expertise. This is the first time I've heard this information. Otherwise, I would have given a concrete answer. Just last year, a new production hall was opened at the Radom Arms factory and production was in full swing. I was on a Defence Committee visit to the arms factory in Radom a few months ago. The factory was running at full capacity. It seemed there were no issues with orders. I'm surprised by this news. I hope these orders will materialise. It turns out that the problems arose suddenly following the government's attempt to take out a loan from the EU under the SAFE programme. President Karol Nawrocki vetoed the loan after it came to light that, according to the loan contract, the borrowed money could be frozen and subsequently used as a tool by the EU to blackmail any future right-wing Polish government. We will definitely save the factory. However, we do indeed have serious problems due to the fact that the president vetoed the loan. And let me remind you that one of the purposes of the budget is to secure jobs at Łucznik. And despite this harmful action by the president, we will definitely pull through. This isn't additional money. Rather, it's money that would replace funds that could have been generated through the Armed Forces Support Fund, which has been in operation for many years. And second, President Karol Nawrocki made an excellent alternative funding proposal that's not being taken up by the government. Shifting the blame for the lack of orders from the Radom factory onto the Brussels scam that is the SAFE programme is completely irresponsible and untrue, because there is money in the budget specifically allocated to make purchases from the Radom weapons factory. It seems that despite the government's rhetoric, the Radom factory is a litmus test for Donald Tusk's policy on Poland's defence industrial base. They're waiting to get permission to spend funds from Brussels in the areas listed in the proposal, and it seems they've simply given up on their own initiative. It looks like a government of impotence, unable to implement its own strategy or its own defence policy. Now the Tusk coalition is blaming the president for this situation in Łucznik as he vetoed the SAFE loan. Since the president did not sign this bill, we need to find other solutions, find the funds for this elsewhere. This is what the state is for, to take care of this, and I think it will. We have launched an alternative programme, Polska Zbrojna. Much of this money will also go to Radom and will benefit the Polish army and the Polish economy. So please, rest assured. For 2.5 years, they've had a huge opportunity, and they're leading to a situation where about a quarter of the highly qualified workforce in Radom may be laid off. These are specialists producing high-quality equipment using high-quality machinery. Of course, The Tusk coalition admits that this whole case revolves around plugging the massive budget hole in the Tusk government. A 15% advance payment towards the safe loan is supposed to help with this. The finance minister isn't interested in any aid for defence contractors. He just wants to take 28 billion zloty this year and improve budget liquidity, which is in dire straits. After the first quarter, it's 70 billion. He needs money like he needs air. After more than 2 years of Tusk's rule, the weapons factory in Radom is starting to face major problems. Time will tell whether the situation gets any better. This decision has shaken the Polish motorsports world. Poland's oldest racetrack, the only one with an international license, has been shut down. Officials from the Polish General Inspectorate for Environmental Protection determined that it was too loud and that the noise was disturbing local residents. But the racers are convinced that there's more to this decision because the nearby airport generates far more noise than the track. What's going on? This place is a national treasure. The Poznań track, a facility over 50 years old, is the oldest in Poland and the only one with an international racing license. Entire families come here to admire rally drivers and motorcyclists. Many young people can safely let off steam here without endangering anyone or themselves under the watchful eye of experienced instructors. Police officers, military personnel and emergency services train here. This is a cradle of motorsport, a breeding ground for talent, and truly the only place where Polish motorsport can thrive. It is a place of friendship among many peoples, many sports disciplines and many careers, a wonderful history that connects generations. And just imagine that this unique place has just been closed down by a decision from officials at the Chief Inspectorate for Environmental Protection. In their opinion, it is too loud here. The mayor of Poznań lowered the noise standards and decided that it cannot exceed 50 decibels. That's very low, unachievable for a racetrack and even for a public road. Despite everything, the track's management tried to limit the noise by, among other things, building sound-absorbing screens and implementing regulations that banned excessively loud cars on the track. But when officials took measurements, they found that the noise exceeded the standards imposed by the city authorities and issued a ruling that came as a shock to the entire motorsports community. These exceedances reach up to 5 decibels. The provincial inspector, who established corrective measures and determined that the environmental objective had not been met, has no choice. In accordance with the law, he must issue a decision suspending the entity's operations. The Poznań racetrack is being closed with immediate effect, and this means the end of races, competitions, training sessions and events at this wonderful venue.
Można powiedzieć, że decyzja o zamknięciu.
One could say that the decision to close the facility marks the end of motorsports, specifically track racing in Poland. We won't be able to develop this discipline anywhere else. We won't be able to compete. We'll probably have to leave our country and compete on our neighbours' tracks. Today it's the Poznań track. Tomorrow it could be a speedway stadium or a soccer stadium. That's why systemic and legislative solutions are crucial so that such facilities can continue to operate. Local residents have been complaining for years about the noise coming from the track. The case has been dragging on since 2012, but is it really just about the noise? People connected to this place have serious doubts. Local residents moved in when the facility was already there, so it shouldn't come as a surprise to them that it's a bit louder. However, that's not the whole story either, because there's an airport next door which, strangely enough, doesn't bother anyone, even though it's known to be much louder, and the noise continues even at night. We all suspect that this isn't really about the noise, it's actually because a developer has already secured the site and the construction plans are already set. When you don't know what's going on, it's about the money. The world has literally come crashing down on the fans and riders, but these are tough competitors and they won't give up so easily.
Decyzja o zamknięciu torów w Poznaniu jest niebezpieczna.
The decision to close the tracks in Poznań is dangerous above all for the city's residents and road users, because all the incidents that could have occurred on the tracks will now take place on the streets, under chaos and dangerous situations. We won't let this stand. There's a petition to sign. It already has over 12,000 signatures. We're going to do something about this. It won't end like this. On the track, they always fight to the end. Now they have to race against a bureaucratic machine so that this unique place survives and can continue to inspire.
The Pentagon is toughening its stance and sending a clear message to Tehran. The Secretary of War makes it clear, if Iran does not agree to the terms of the deal, the United States will strike Iran's energy sector.
You are digging out your remaining launchers and missiles with no ability to replace them. You have no defense industry, no ability to replenish your offensive or defensive capabilities. You only have what you have. You know that, and we know that. You can move things around, but you can't actually rebuild. You can dig out for now, but you can't.
This is followed by concrete actions at sea. The U.S. Navy is not only patrolling the strait, but is clearly setting conditions for all vessels. In recent hours, U.S. ships have turned back several more vessels attempting to pass through the blockade, including a Chinese tanker on the U.S. sanctions list.
Vessels will be boarded for interdiction and seizure transiting to or from Iranian ports. Turn around or prepare to be boarded.
Traffic through the Strait of Hormuz is limited to a minimum. Any attempt to increase it could lead to a confrontation. Tehran is not backing down from talks, but it is increasingly questioning the United States' intentions. At the same time, however, it is sending signals of a willingness to compromise. According to diplomats, a partial reopening of the strait in Omani territorial waters is possible. Talks are ongoing through Pakistan, and it remains to be seen how seriously the other side takes its declarations about diplomacy. It is the United States that must prove it is sincere. The channel through Pakistan remains the only realistic avenue of communication, and the last window for a diplomatic resolution to the conflict. The White House denies alleged attempts to extend the ceasefire.
Those discussions are being had, but nothing is official until you hear it from us here at the White House. But we feel good about the prospects of a deal. The President mentioned that in his interview yesterday, and it's obviously in the best interest of Iran to meet the president's demands.
In Washington, however, there is a growing belief that there is no single decision-making center on the Iranian side. There is increasing talk that military structures, and not just official negotiators, have real influence on decisions. It is also one of the reasons why both the U.S. and Israeli militaries remain on full alert. A ceasefire with Iran has been in effect for several days, in accordance with decisions by political authorities. We are closely monitoring the situation and the ongoing negotiations. The army is ready. If necessary, we will resume operations and strike quickly and decisively. In southern Lebanon, the situation looks completely different from what diplomatic statements suggest. The last bridge connecting this region to the rest of the country has been destroyed. The entire south has been cut off, separated from Sidon and Beirut. It's as if someone was alive and then suddenly killed, cut off from life. The historic talks between Israel and Lebanon focus mainly on Hezbollah. For Tel Aviv, the matter is clear. The only path to peace is the elimination of the terrorists. In our talks with Lebanon, we have two main goals: the disarmament of Hezbollah and the achievement of lasting peace through strength. However, Hezbollah rejects both the Beirut government's negotiations and the terms of peace. Therefore, it is doubtful that Israel would consider halting its operations.
I'm against the ceasefire.
I am against the ceasefire. If we do this now, in a month or two we'll be back at war. It never ends. We have to end it now. Most residents of northern Israel, who have lived for decades under the shadow of the threat posed by Hezbollah militants, share this view. For Israel, the moment of confrontation between the United States and Iran is the only opportunity to try to eliminate the Tehran-backed militants in Lebanon, Yemen, and Gaza. It is therefore difficult to imagine that Israel's political and military leadership would simply back down.
Nearly 50 days of war in the Middle East and restrictions on the transport of raw materials due to the blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. This is a problem affecting drivers around the world. This includes Poland, which is why we regularly discuss it on TV Republica. This was also the case yesterday on our new program, Who's in Charge? Let's check today's fuel prices. A liter of 95-octane gasoline is expected to cost no more than 6.16 zloty today. 98-octane gasoline is 6.70 zloty, and a liter of diesel is 7.58 zloty, a drop of 17 groszy. Let's take a quick look at how things stand in Poland's neighboring countries. This is what it looks like. Reporting on fuel prices did not sit well with Polish Deputy Minister of National Defense, Cezary Tomczyk.
Uwaga, uwaga, rosyjska dezinformacja. I to gdzie?
Attention, Russian disinformation, and on TV Republica no less. TV Republica wants to convince Poles that fuel is the most expensive in Europe, when in fact it's the cheapest in Europe. Tomorrow's fuel price is 6.08 zloty. That's how it should be. Except that such a claim was never made. Instead, the name of the country with the most expensive fuel at that time was mentioned. If we were determined to find the most expensive fuel in Europe, we'd have to go to the Netherlands, where unleaded gasoline costs 10.48 zloty per liter. We're glad that Cezary Tomczyk has joined the audience of our new show, but the hosts have some advice for him.
Nowy widz zawsze w cenie,
A
ale
new viewer is always welcome, but it would be nice if he were a clever one. I think it's time to change the hashtag from the well-known one, we do, we don't talk, to we listen, we don't talk. Because if Mr. Tomczyk had listened to us carefully, he would know that we didn't say fuel in Poland is among the most expensive, because it's most expensive in the Netherlands. I said that myself. Fuel in Poland isn't the cheapest in the European Union either. It's cheapest in Malta. I'm glad Cezary Tomczyk found out who's in charge here. Citizens rule in Poland. Viewers, politicians perform their duties for the benefit of citizens. Journalists perform their duties for the benefit of those same citizens. And if Cezary Tomczyk thinks that fuel prices in Poland aren't breaking Poles' banks, then he should find something else to do, as soon as possible. Just because fuel in Poland isn't the most expensive doesn't mean it's cheap for drivers, especially since the ruling coalition's promises were different. If you are convinced that the broken promises made by your boss and his backers regarding fuel at 5.19 zloty aren't draining Poles' pockets, it means you don't understand anything. Because the Polish deputy minister of the government, who allows those who in the past participated in the reset with Russia to be responsible for matters of national security, accuses others of being pro-Russian.